So there was tons of articles out about it at the time talking about how this car had too much power for the general public because all the other cars of that era were limited to 155. So this was in a different league.
Well, this car is fabulous. I mean, you think you're in a AMG Mercedes or something.
And you're used to fast cars, but for it to still impress you.
Welcome to that episode of Jay Leno's Garage. The car featuring today, very rare. In fact, this is probably the only one you will see in America. I believe it's the only one I've ever seen. I can't be any others that I know of so far, but they might be out there. You don't know. It's a 1992 Lotus Carlton. Now, if you don't know this car, this is a legendary automobile in Europe. It's a combination of Lotus and General Motors. Incredibly fast, 377 horsepower. The British Parliament actually tried to ban it because they thought it was too fast. You know, in England, I guess you can have a Lamborghini or Ferrari because those are sort of high-end cars. The Carlton was based on the Vauxhall, so the reason they thought it'd be too much for the average person. I guess that was what it's a fascinating story. Let's meet the owner, Dr. Sanjay Mehta. Come on in, doctor. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Good to see you, my friend. And of course, if your parents are Indian, you have to be a doctor. That's pretty much the law.
So I made them proud.
Oh,
That's right.
I love Indian parents. They're like the strictest, like old-time Italians. You know, and if you're not a doctor, it's a horrible thing. So they've got to be very proud.
I was groomed from birth.
There
what
you
can
go.
I say?
There you go. Tell us about this car, how you came to acquire it, and it's 6-cylinder, twin turbochargers. It's a combination. GM bought Lotus, and they worked with GM of Europe, and Lotus built this car. This was originally supposed to have the 4-cam V8 out of the Corvette ZR1, the first generation ZR1.
Right.
It didn't fit.
Right.
They went back and modified the 6-cylinder motor. But you fill us in a little bit more.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the reason I was interested is because I love that Corvette ZR1, that LT5 when Lotus designed it. It was a huge deal. I was in high school, it was in all the magazines.
Right.
And there were little blurry pictures of this supposed 4-door ZR1, and it was obviously never brought to the US. But right around that time when Lotus was purchased by GM, Bob Eaton wanted to do like a hot rod version of this. Was basically like a Ford Taurus or a Chevy Lumina. But interestingly, unlike the American aero cars, the first aerodynamic cars, which were all front drive, this one came out in '87 as the Opel Omega and the Vauxhall Carlton, and it was rear wheel drive, nicely balanced chassis, straight six, so it actually was European Car of the Year in '87.
But it was slow.
It was slow. It was slow by American standards, for sure, but even like over there, it had a drag coefficient of 0.28.
Wow.
So it had a really high top speed for Europe, even with minimal power. Like I think the straight six NA, the 12 valve, this a run-of-the-mill straight six, which is like a 1960s motor, would still go 135 miles an hour just because it was a low drag car.
Wow.
But Bob Eaton wanted to showcase, like you said, what the world, what Lotus could really do, and they wanted to beat BMW and Mercedes at their own game.
And Bob Eaton was head of General Motors at that time.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. We're going back a long time.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a long time to me.
Well, he took over General Motors Europe, and so he was, and so there was a lot of friction. The whole story behind it. I have a hardback book on the subject, and as you know, Jason Camisa did a really good video on it.
Yes, Jason Camisa did a wonderful piece on this.
That's the one
car.
you need to see.
If you go to Haggerty, take a look. It really goes into depth, all the history of it. And that's where I learned about Parliament wanted to ban it. It was too much for the average person. It was ridiculous, an average person having a fast car like that. It was just very funny.
Because they already had that gentleman's agreement in Europe to limit cars to 155 after the oil crisis in '79. And this car was after that, but somehow they just skirted around it, and this thing would do 177 in 1992.
I took a Corvette to Europe in the early 2000s, and I'm running 171, 172, and I'm passing all the Mercedes and BMW. They're limited to 155.
Right, you're going.
And driving a Corvette over there at that time, you pull into a McDonald's, kids, oh my God, a Corvette, they go crazy, like it's a Ferrari or something, because they're so rare, So that was kind of exciting. But let's get back to this. It's right-hand drive. Did they build any left-hand drive?
They did. So they made the Opel Omega and the Vauxhall Carlton were twins,
Right.
but it depended on which side of the English Channel you were on. The Vauxhall Carlton were all right-hand drive, and the Opel Omegas were all left-hand drive. And you could get a Lotus version of either one just for that brief time. So there was 950 cars, I think, built. 630, I think, were left-hand drive Omegas, and the only 320 were right-hand drive Carltons.
And these were what, 377 horsepower?
You got it.
Which
Exactly.
doesn't seem like much today, but the car only weighs.
Yeah, it was about 3,600 pounds. So it was
I thought
kind
it was in the twos.
No, this one was pretty heavy at its
Yeah?
time. I mean, by those days, it's light today.
Right.
A Tesla Model 3 weighs more than that.
Right.
But at the time, 3,600 was heavy.
Right.
Back then. So it wasn't super light, but I mean, when you think about the context of what a 500e Mercedes or a BMW M5 made, this outpowered all of them easily.
Right.
Not even close.
Yeah, and it would run close to 180 miles an hour, correct?
Yeah, and some of the magazines actually got over 180. In Camisa's video, he talks about how there's a special cheat code where you could actually unlock a special program if you turn the headlights on and hold the motor at 2,000 RPM for a certain period of time. It unlocked a different tune, and so that's why some of the cars were able to go a little faster. This car has that tune built into it already.
And you have to remember, it wasn't until 1989 that a production car hit 200 miles an hour. That was the F40.
Right.
So to go 180
in a four-door family sedan.
in a family, we're crazy.
Yeah, even the C4ZR1 Corvette could barely do like 179-ish.
Right.
Hardly, and this is, but you're right, the V8 wouldn't fit in here. They would have had to re-engineer the front suspension. Like, you remember on the 500e how they widened?
Right.
They actually had Porsche do all that because it was no longer, because even that car wasn't designed for an 8.
Yeah.
But this one, they didn't have the budget to do that.
And they took the standard Vauxhall 6, put a 4-valve head on it?
So the 4-valve head was designed beforehand. Opel had done that. So they were coming out with, it was kind of like the Taurus versus Taurus SHO that had the 4-valve motor. They did a 4-valve version, NA, a hot-rodded Opel Omega 3000, the GSI I think it was called. But then while that was being designed, at the same time Lotus was going one step further. Same motor, same head, but it was a stroker, so 3.6 liter, it's all stroke, so it's an under-square motor.
Okay.
And then put the twin turbos on it.
Twin cam?
Twin cam,
Wow.
twin turbo. Because otherwise that same straight 6 and single cam, it dated back to like, I think the 60s. Yeah, it was an old motor.
And although twin cam is nothing now, again, at the time, huge deal.
And in Europe, a 3.6 liter motor was a big block. There weren't motors that big over there.
Yeah, in France, anything more than 2.7 liter was taxed into oblivion, basically. Nobody could afford to have those. So, and it's such a sleeper-looking car. This is what the British would call a Q-ship, isn't it?
Q-ship, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I remember reading about these Road and Track, went to Europe to test one. And it was so exotic at the time. Lotus, we all knew Lotus with Jim Clark and winning Indianapolis and all this, and then modifying a Vauxhall.
Right.
Oh, it's just great. It's just great.
And kind of looking at the chronology of how cars have grown, this is not a big sedan when we look at it now.
Right.
It's about the size of a 2025 Honda Civic.
Right.
But at the time, it was a full-size family car. This was like basically a Ford Taurus.
But some little hints. They got the flares.
Yeah.
Flares on the front and the back, and kind of Recaro style seats anyway.
They had Recaros planned. I think it got costed out at some point, but they actually had to take the fully built Opel cars, or the Vauxhall in this case, and they shipped them to Lotus in England, and actually took a plasma cutter and cut out the fender wells and glued on and touched up the paint and everything. So they came over as fully built or Vauxhall Carltons, and they had to just put all the Lotus stuff on. They even had to take the motors out and ship them back to Germany to put in another normal car.
Really?
So they weren't body and white. They were basically finished cars without the bumpers.
Well, let's open the hood and show folks this motor we're talking about.
Sure. I think the release
it's on this side.
Yeah, it's on your side.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll grab it for you.
Well, it looks impressive, doesn't it? Look at that. You got 3.6 liter, 24 valve.
Charge cooled sounds more proper British than intercooled, doesn't
Charge
it?
cooled.
Charge cooled.
That's a charge cooled. Yeah, very nice. Wow. Okay.
So,
and boy, it's crammed in there, isn't there?
It is.
And you have 2 turbochargers.
Two, and so it's just a parallel setup. Each bank of 3 cylinders has one. So they did a cutout on the left side of the hood to vent the turbo heat out,
Right.
but they just made it symmetrical by putting a dummy on this side.
Now, does it run hot? with
It
twin
really
turbo?
doesn't. You know, I'm in Texas, and
Yeah.
the AC is not the greatest, but it's reasonable.
Right, right.
I haven't
okay.
ever tracked it or anything. I haven't really run it real hard, but it runs fine in normal driving, even in 100-degree Houston summers.
How many miles have you put on it?
Not that many, probably about 500 or so.
Oh, that's all
Yeah,
so
that's
far,
about it,
okay.
yeah. It spent a lot of time in the shop,
Yeah.
so.
So what was wrong when you got it?
Not much, actually. It just had been driven a bit. It ended up having a head gasket issue and just getting parts and stuff like that. So it has a full rebuild now in the motor. Like, everything is all redone on it.
Now, was it easy to get into the country? If that's a tricky subject we could drop.
No, it wasn't bad, actually. So I have a friend who's an engineer at JLR, Jaguar Land Rover,
Right.
and this was an auction car. It was on an online auction in Britain. And so luckily he was able to expedite everything on that and inspect it and talk to once it gets on the boat, they actually made it very simple. Customs clearing was quite easy.
Oh, okay.
And being over 25 years old, now it's easy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like it's gray market or anything.
I know, it's funny. Wow, it's just,
Yeah, it's a 33-year-old car.
let's see, we shut this again.
Sure. You got it.
And suspension obviously upgraded as well. They did their Lotus magic on that.
They
didn't
did, and it was already, the Opels already were quite nimble. It's an independent rear with semi-trailing arms and McPherson struts in the front. One thing the Lotus people had to add, because of the aero balance, they actually got rid of the lift.
Yeah.
So it actually has a slight bit of downforce with that rear wing. And with the semi-trailing arm suspension at the car's top speed, it's squatting quite a bit. It was getting too much negative camber. So they added a self-leveling rear suspension.
Now the wing, is that aftermarket or is that stock?
It's stock. You know, it almost looks like it could be a tuner piece, but this is all the bits on this car as they came from Lotus.
Even that antenna, well, I guess 92, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, just fascinating. And nobody knows what it is.
Right.
do they? Yeah.
And it's old enough now where it just gets looks because it's an old car. It's like, oh, what is that, a Saturn or an Oldsmobile? Like an Oldsmobile
Right.
Cutlass of that era kind of looked
Saturn.
like this. You know?
How insulting that
I
is.
know, it kind of was. But what's funny is when you go to Radwood, I had it on display at Radwood in
Yeah.
Austin, and you can really tell who the real aficionados are,
Right.
because I had it next to a Testarossa. Everyone, of course, is looking at the Ferrari,
Right.
but 1 out of 50 people would be like, oh my God, and their eyes would bulge out, and then you'd know that they're a
That's
real.
the real Radwoodian. Yes. That's the actual Radwoodian guy. Very good. And of course the stock wheels, and of course the famous Lotus badge with the yellow and the green. Yeah.
The wheels are almost exactly what was on the Esprit turbos back then. I think they may even be the same
I guess that's
pieces.
right, isn't it? Yeah. And Lotus really wanted to make it a race car, didn't they? They didn't.
Yeah, they didn't mess around.
And it was not cheap new, was it?
This was about 45,000 pounds, so it was more than double the price of a Vauxhall Carlton.
Right.
But it was, half the price of an exotic that had this, like the Testarossa was 2x the money, and it was the same top speed.
Was the Vauxhall called Carlton also?
So the Vauxhall was a Carlton, and then
I
the
see.
Opel was the Omega. So
I
the,
see,
the
okay.
Omegas were German left-hand drive, and the Vauxhalls were UK right-hand drive.
So it just became Lotus Carlton.
Lotus Carlton or Lotus Omega.
Right. Okay, very
Right.
nice. But it's a great alternative to a BMW. You get more than enough room in the back seat. And they never built a two-door coupe, did they?
They never did. They
No.
did do Pininfarina did a concept car called the Kronos. It never reached production.
Right.
But it was a low-slung two-seater with like an electrochromatic glass canopy. It had this full powertrain, but it never got green-lighted.
This car kind of ahead of its time, because we're in the era now where, to most people, four-door, two-door, most people prefer a four-door because if you're my age, two-door was always the cool way to go. It was just
My age too.
yeah.
Maybe I'm closer to your age.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah. Nowadays.
people get a four-door Hellcat.
Yeah.
And like, why'd you get the two-door? Well, because I got kids, I got people in the back. All right, okay.
Right.
So but it fits nicely, and of course, as I said, it's a great sleeper car. A cop's not going to go, what's that? A Lotus Carlton? Hit the siren. Very nice. And of course, Lotus steering wheel on there.
And then if you look at the gear shift knob, it's directly out of a C4 ZR1 Corvette.
Oh, right.
So again, as a kid, they didn't change the knob or anything. So as enamored as I was with the ZR1, I was like, oh my God, this is like having a four-door ZR1.
That's right, because I remember, I don't think the Vauxhall transmission could have taken the power.
Right.
That was used to 150 horsepower.
Right, and this had 410 foot-pounds of torque. So
Right.
because of the turbos, it made more torque than the naturally aspirated ZR1 did.
Right, right. So they just took the Corvette transmission.
And then the differential out of a Holden V8 car. You know, the Holdens were essentially Opels as well. They were
Right.
just re-engineered for, and of course in Australia they did actually stick a V8 in them.
Right, right.
But
And
they didn't do that for this version.
And of course, those who don't know, Holden was the GM arm of was in
Australia.
Australia.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
we got here as the Pontiac GTO.
Right.
And actually, you remember the Caddy that zigs? The
Oh, yeah.
Cadillac Catera, that
Yeah.
was basically the next the next generation of this Opel, which they brought here as a Cadillac with a V6. You could get that as a manual too. That's a really rare car.
Well, let's take a ride and see myth or reality, see what we get here. I'm real excited to drive this. This is cool. Oh, plenty of room. Stock mufflers even.
Yep.
Well, she feels like she wants to run.
Right. It's got the same 345 axle ratio as a Corvette of that era too.
Oh yeah, it's got some power. It's fun.
And that's in spite of a super tall first gear.
Yeah.
Same ratios as the ZR1.
Oh yeah.
Smooth straight six, right? Just a
Can't be a straight six. Always inherently smoother.
right. Although the next gen, like the one they brought to the U.S. as the Cadillac Catera,
Yeah.
was a V6.
Yeah.
Even though it was the same basic chassis, I guess they wanted to have a compact.
Lancia was the first V6.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. That was Vittorio Jano. See what she does here. Boy, it's pulled really hard.
Yeah. And that's only 10 pounds of boost.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
I can easily turn that up and it'll make a lot more power. So this particular car, the previous owner had connections at Lotus Works, and
Right.
so in Hethel back there, he got access to some different parts. So it has a slightly modified turbo setup
Oh, interesting.
because these had Garrett T25s,
Right.
but this is a T25 T28 hybrid. They changed the internal scrolls, and so
Okay.
they ramp up a little quicker. And I have it turned down to only 10 pounds now, but it could make a lot more boost.
And what went here?
I think probably the non-Carltons may have had like I'm sorry, the non-Lotuses. The
Yeah.
regular Carltons probably had a stereo thing, something like maybe graphic equalizer.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm not really sure, because I've never seen a regular one. Growing up here, I've never been in the standard version. And you get the Lotus TAC, and of course the Speedo goes way
Right.
higher than the factory.
Right,
The
right.
regular ones would hit like 120. This one even has heated seats, kind of rare back then. Everything pretty much works, even on a 30-year-old British car. So
Yeah.
it took some time to make everything work, but
No, that's great.
you got to be patient. You know how it is. You
Is
gotta
that
be
your serial number there?
Yeah, they out of the 900 built. This is one of the later ones,
Oh, okay.
783.
I guess you want to get near the end of the build, don't you?
Probably so. Let them figure some stuff out. But yeah, these cars were fully built Opel, or in this case, Vauxhall Carltons. They got shipped to Lotus,
And then torn down.
torn down. Take
Yeah.
the motor out, take a plasma cutter, cut the fenders out. They even reupholstered the seats with the Lotus specific sport padding and
How
upholstery.
expensive is that?
Oh, it's insane. 150 hours at the Lotus factory.
Yeah, yeah.
After it was already a built car,
This is probably your lowest profile car, isn't it?
right?
You could drive this to the hospital and park it.
I can easily.
Nobody would know a day. In fact, if you put tape over the Lotus badges,
Right.
nobody would ever bother you.
Now the thing is, it's just an old. It doesn't look like a modern car, so people just look at it because it's old, not because it's a Lotus.
Right, right. It's funny. Where people look at me. It's just old now. You're not a
Old now.
comedian.
Like I love cars from this era because this is when I was growing up. So like, 90s Thunderbird Super Coupe is like it was a normal car, but then now people just look at it because it's not something you see. I was always a fan of the Taurus SHO, so this was like the SHO on steroids.
Yeah, the SHO is a great car.
Yeah. turbos come up pretty quick, don't they?
They do come up pretty quick.
You expect an old car to have more lag. But
No, it's
they come on boost pretty fast.
well, with this 4-valve head, it revs pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels good.
Pretty quick for a Saturn.
I might open the mufflers up a little bit, get a little more sound out of it.
It would sound better, I agree.
Some Lotus-y kind of sound.
Right.
But boy, it is.
Yeah. And you're used to fast cars, but for it to still impress you, I mean, in 1992, when a regular Vauxhall Carlton had 85 horsepower.
And it's quick rather than fast.
Right.
Which I like.
Even though it's got tall gears.
I love the long pull.
Mm-hmm. That's why that Corvette ZR1 was amazing, because at the time, it could do 60 in first and 70 plus, and there you go. Nice.
Oh yeah, this thing is, well, this car is fabulous. I mean, you'd think you're in a AMG Mercedes or something.
And of course, remember back then, AMG was still an independent tuner. There were no factory AMG.
Right.
So this was ahead of the curve. Even BMW M cars were pretty rare at the time.
Yeah.
The original M5, when they were designing this, only had 250 horsepower.
You know, I used to work for BMW in Boston. The 2002, the TII, the coupes.
Yeah.
The styling has gotten so odd to me now.
Yeah.
I don't understand that Bucky the Beaver front
my
end.
God. And it's unfortunate because the car drives great.
It does. I don't know why that. Apparently, that look is very popular in China for some reason.
Yeah, must be. But when you're behind the wheel, you just forget it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I did the BMW M school at Nürburgring, and those cars are amazing on the Nürburgring. You're running with the BMW M instructors, no helmets,
right?
140 down the front straight. Super stable cars, but yeah, that nose kills it.
What's your best time on the ring?
Oh, well, this was a M school, so you're not really getting time lapse, but I think probably, it felt fast to me, probably about an 8.5 to 9 minute lap. And that feels pretty darn fast.
Yeah, that's what I did, 8 something in the Jag. Yeah, pretty tight. Mm-hmm. Very nice.
The chassis got 100,000 miles on it, but it's not too squeaky creaky.
Really? 100,000 miles? Well, this car does have 100,000 miles, doesn't it?
The motor's fresh, but the chassis is older. But yeah, they screwed them together pretty well.
Did you do an engine out on it?
Yes. When the head gasket blew, we did everything. Back then, the suspensions were more compliant too. You know, it's not too rock hard.
Yeah.
They weren't going for a Nürburgring time. They were wanting it to be compliant.
Well, nothing ruined luxury cars like Nürburgring. Suddenly, your Mercedes had to do it in, you know, how many seconds? Well, why?
7 minutes.
Why?
Yeah.
You know.
And then it rides like crap.
Right. When I was a kid, the big getaway car was the Mark II Jaguar. That was the one that people had.
The bad guy.
And then in the 90s, it became these, didn't it?
Yeah, but after that, one guy stole one of these, and
what's the story on that?
So there was a group of thieves. They literally stole this guy named Richard Anderson. He got the car for his 40th birthday, so it had a personalized plate, 40 RA. They stole it out of his driveway in the middle of the night. He went chasing him down the street barefoot and I think naked. Yeah. And they got away. And then they started using that car for a series of store heists, smash and grabs, I guess ram raids they call them in Britain.
Yeah.
So they were ram raiding, and one of them was they were more and more brazen. Every time they'd go to another one, they'd do it, like they'd steal more stuff, and they would literally pick places that were near police stations. It didn't bother them because there's footage of Saab police cars trying to chase them down with a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder.
I mean, when you're chasing robbers naked, what do you do when you catch up with them?
And so they interviewed the guy, like, what were you planning on doing? He's like, I was being stupid. It was an idiotic thing to do.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense, you know.
But he did that, and they got away without him. But eventually, after many, many robberies, that car was dredged up at the bottom of a lake bed.
Wow.
And it had been, the roof was caved in where like some barge had hit it or something, so it was not repairable. But he got his license plate back, and he put it on he bought another Carlton.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, so there was tons of articles out about it at the time talking about how this car had too much power for the general public, and of course those criminals kind of proved them right in a way. They could.
But you think if you're a cop, there's not many of these around. If you see one, hey, those must be the guys.
Right. Exactly. They didn't even change the plate on it. So
yeah.
That's because all the other cars of that era were limited to 155. Even the high-end like 500e Mercedes. Even Donald were just talking about one recently. But those were slush box only, and they only had 320 horsepower. So this was in a different league.
Where do you go 155 in London?
Yeah, exactly.
But the turbo boost comes on very naturally.
And with two small turbos, pretty low inertia, so they spool up pretty quick.
Corners nicely.
A little bit of body roll, like on older cars, they just had. It feels good though. It feels natural. It was okay to have body roll in the 90s. Now everything's got to be so stiff.
I'm not going to mention how fast we got, but it's quite brisk.
Yes. So you're only at 4,000 RPM in third gear.
Yeah. And so you got plenty.
You got a lot of real estate, a lot of RPM.
It gathers RPM very quickly.
And so fifth gear is actually your top speed gear because that's super tall overdrive and saves. Just like the Corvette.
Sanjay, thank you very much for bringing this car. This is a real treat. This is a car I've read about, but you know, you just don't get it in the States. So, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. You've got a Mercury we want to take a look at. Tell people what that is.
Sure. It's a 1970 Mercury Cyclone, which was basically like Mercury version of the Ford Gran Torino, like in the Clint Eastwood movie. For those who haven't seen one, but the Mercury version had, Bunky Knudsen was the chairman back then, so it has what they call the bunky beak, like the Pontiacs, with the pointy nose. But that was a car that my parents bought new back in 1970 and brought me home from the hospital in it as a newborn. And it was my favorite car as a kid, so I found one about 15 years ago and did a full resto mod on it, kind of similar to your Galaxy, with a Roush fuel-injected 8-stack crate motor and a T56 transmission and Willwood brakes and all that good stuff.
Very good. A doctor who works on cars. That's great. That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for bringing this. I really appreciate it.
The pleasure's mine.
It's a real treat to drive a piece of history. I never thought I'd see one here in the States because nobody brought them in. So.
Right. No, thank you. It's pleasure's mine.
Yeah, that was very cool. Hope you guys enjoyed this piece of European history. Really an unusual car. That's the most fun about doing this website. It's fun to drive the Lamborghinis and the Ferraris and all that stuff, but something like this is so obscure and so under the radar, even back in the day. And be sure to check out Jason Kamish's review on Haggerty. He does a great job, goes into a lot more depth than we do. It's really terrific. See you guys next week. Thanks a lot.